Karma Yogi's attitude is a way of life is for a certain goal. And this is what chapter 3 brings in. That is why I have to bring it in, because in chapter 2, Bhagwan introduces the topic, but in chapter 3, he elaborates the topic of Karma Yoga very much, and why he considers it actually superior to Jnanam, because the majority of human beings are not ready for Jnana Yoga. Majority of human beings are not ready to renounce this world and spend their life in contemplation, in solitude, simply just absorbed in the self and in Brahman and studying the scriptures. Who is able to do that? It is very, very difficult, not so easy. And this is exactly what Arjuna wants to do. He doesn't want to face life. He wants to run away. He doesn't like to fight this war. Bhagavan is constantly telling him, Yudhyasva, get up, uttishta, fight. You have to do your duty. It is like all of us. We all have fights. We all have our wars that we have to face every day on a day-to-day basis. Are we going to run away from our challenges? No, Bhagavad Gita says that is not the way out. Because whenever you run away, those challenges will come in a different manner to you. Even suppose you take sannyas and you run off to the Himalayas, and you're trying to avoid, I hate people, I don't want to be near people, let me go to the Himalayas and live in a cave. I'll be much more peaceful there. I don't need to be around anyone. And you'll find when you go and find the cave, there will be 100 people wanting to live in that cave as well. That is the law of nature. It somehow attracts. What you run away from will follow you somewhere. And I know that has happened to people who have done that type of thing. So with that, chapter 3, how does it begin? It begins with a question. This is the beauty of Bhagavad Gita. Every chapter you'll find, most chapters, there will be a question from Arjuna because he doesn't understand fully what Bhagavan is saying. And this is exactly what he begins with here. He says, chapter 3, first verse, Arjuna uvacha jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tat kim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava. So he's at a crossroads now in his life. He doesn't know. All the teaching has been given in second chapter, but he doesn't know what the right thing to do is. And he is very confused. He wants Krishna to tell him. He has not really understood the message of the second chapter, and it's not a problem as well. And here, what he's expressing in this verse is that he wants Krishna to make the decision for him. He doesn't know of two things. He says, what is the best thing to do? So as I said, in chapter 2, we saw that ignorance is the cause of sorrow. Ignorance of your true nature is what gives you sorrow. You limit yourself to the body, mind, senses, and you think all the problems of the body, mind, and senses belong to you. And this is what Bhagavan said in the second chapter. You're much more than your body, mind, senses. You are an entity that dwells within the body, mind, senses, that survives death, that is never born, it never dies. We saw those verses, and that entity is called Atma, consciousness, pure consciousness, and that same consciousness pervades every single being on this planet. That is Advaita Vedanta, oneness, the vision of oneness. Bodies, minds, and all these various names and forms differ, but the whole crux of Vedanta, whole crux of Upanishad and our Vedic teaching is what? Despite all the multiplicity, the differences, there is only one pure consciousness. And this is when I realized that, the sorrow is gone in life. That is called self-realization. We saw that chapter 2, Bhagavan said, knowledge alone can give you happiness, self-knowledge. So Arjuna's heart is in sannyasa. He thinks knowledge is equal to renunciation. And this is the mistake he makes, because he doesn't understand what renunciation really is. Renunciation is not renunciation of action. This is a mistake a lot of people make. They think sannyasa means get away from the world. You don't have to do any work. You don't have to do anything in the world. And this is real renunciation. No. The whole of Gita, Bhagavan will talk in chapter 4 and 5. What is real renunciation? It is in the mind. Renunciation is in your thoughts. It is how you live in your world, yet you are unattached by what happens. Like a lotus, lotus, if you've seen, they live in murky, muddy waters, but the mud never touches the beauty of the lotus. Lotus survives in murky, muddy waters, and it's not touched by the muck and the mud around. And it's so beautiful, such a beautiful flower. And this is renunciation, to live in this world and not be touched by it. So this is the main confusion Arjuna has. Sannyasa, he thinks, is running away from the world. Lord Krishna is not against sannyasa, renunciation, but in this chapter he's pro karma yoga, because most are in that stage. And he knows sannyasa, the renunciate life, requires a prepared mind. We saw in the text Tattva Bodha the type of preparation you need: viveka, discriminative analysis, vairagya, detachment, all of these qualities. I won't go through here, but a lot of list of qualities that one needs, which is not easy. They're not easy to gain. So Arjuna says, buddhihi jayasi karmanaha te. The first thing he says, mata te mata, your contention, O Krishna. What is your contention? That you say that buddhihi, here, buddhihi means jnanam, that this knowledge is superior to karma. You've told me in the second chapter, this is superior to karma. And now, what's he saying? Now you're saying, do karma. He finishes chapter 2 by saying, do karma. First of all, so this is the confusion. He says that, buddhi, you're telling me jnanam is the way to get rid of sorrow. Jnanam is the way to discover the happiness that you really are inside. And now you're telling me act in life. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. So this is what his confusion is. And he says here, buddhi here is, buddhi here, is jnanam. So Arjuna doesn't understand sannyasa. Here alone, we should really clearly understand what Shastra is trying to say. We can never compare karma yoga and jnana yoga. Why? Because there's only comparison when there are two options. There are no two options here. Arjuna thinks there's two options. It's very clear what is opposed to ignorance. Only knowledge is opposed to ignorance. Karma cannot remove ignorance. By acting, can you remove ignorance? You cannot. Ignorance is in the mind. It is only knowledge that will remove ignorance. So karma yoga purifies the mind. It has a role. What is the role of karma yoga? By living such a lifestyle, what happens? It is said in our scriptures that your mind, which is called antavkarana, becomes more and more pure, more and more clear, more and more lucid, that you have more peace of mind. That's what it means by a pure mind. Peace of mind is there. So karma yoga is the beginning stage of this spiritual journey, and everybody begins with karma yoga. But Bhagavan says that is only the beginning of it. A karma yogi has to turn into a jnana yogi finally. So it is like if you want to eat a cake, you have to do all the preparation and the groundwork first, bake the cake. Jnana yoga is eating the cake. If you're doing some gardening and you want a plant to grow, you have to dig the soil. You are the one who has to plant. You have to make the effort, water the plant, and see the plant grow. And the palam of that plant growing is like jnana yoga, which is the yoga of knowledge. So there's no choice here. And this is what Arjuna says in this verse. He says, Kim mam niyojasi ghore karmani. Actually, it's quite interesting how he talks to Krishna. It's very nice. It's like it's a teacher, but it's bordering on also a friend. He's got that freedom with the teacher, and that is what the tradition also says. If you have any doubts, you should be able to be free enough to clarify with the teacher. So he says, Kim mam niyojasi ghore karmani. Why, oh Lord, are you pushing me into this gruesome action? It is not just any action, it is a gruesome action, the worst of all actions, involving bloodshed, killing the people I love, Bhishma, Drona, all these people. I've grown up on their laps, and you're pushing me into this action. And this is quite funny coming from Arjuna. Why? because for 13 years in the forest, all he could dream about was getting to the war and getting rid of Duryodhana and the Kaurava clan. So it's very interesting how this weakness of mind, Hridaya Daurbalyam, Krishna calls it in the first chapter, suddenly his intellect is clouded, his discriminative capacity is gone. After 13 years in the forest, being very sure this is what he wanted, as soon as he's faced with the challenge, no, run off. He has all excuses in his mind, you know. So here, Bhagwan says that he's asking Bhagwan, why do I have to fight? You tell me Jnanam is better, but you're forcing me into the worst of all actions. Tell me why. Help me to understand why you're doing this. And he calls him a very beautiful name. He gives Krishna in this verse, Janardhana. Janardhana means Dushta Jana Mardhana, the destroyer of people given to wrong ways. That's another name given for Krishna. It also has another meaning, Janardhana, which means the one who puts an end to this cycle of birth and death. Also Janardhana. And Keshava, he says, two words for Krishna. Keshava is also a very beautiful word for Krishna, standing for all the Trimurti, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara is encompassed in the word Keshava. So this is his main problem when he starts this chapter. Why am I being forced to do this action? And then Krishna goes on to say, Vyamishreneva vakyena buddhim mohayasiva me tadekam vada nishchitya yena shreyo hamapnuyam. Arjuna goes on to say here, Vyamishrena vyakyena. O Krishna, with words which are seemingly contradictory, you confuse my mind. And earlier I only had the confusion whether to fight or not. But now you've given me an extra confusion in life. Fantastic. Thank you, Lord. I'm already confused enough. Now you put another confusion in my life. What is that? Whether I should do karma, action, or whether I should follow jnanam, the path of knowledge. And this is very interesting because we see too many options in life can also make life traumatic. All of us like control. We like to know what to do, when to do, with whom to do. It is very difficult when we're given a lot of options. You can do this, you can do that. We don't know half the time which is the right thing to do. And this is exactly what Arjuna is going through. Some people even go from person to person to person to ask advice from so many people, and everybody says something different. Then again, you have more trauma because what are you going to pick? Whose option are you going to pick? What are you going to, who are you going to listen to? So confusion is the beginning of chapter 3 is confusion. And he says to Bhagavan, Ekam vada nishchitya. Tell me the one thing definitely, Yena, by which I will gain liberation, by which I will gain moksha. Is it knowledge or is it action? Arjuna doesn't want to think for himself. He wants clarity from his guru. And he doesn't, again, the confusion will not be there if he had understood what Krishna was really talking about. And Krishna, you can see, is very patient. He asks the same question again and again and again. And he doesn't say, what are you talking about, Arjuna? I told you everything in the second chapter. Again, you're bringing up everything here again. He never says that, reacts like that. He is extremely patient. This is, again, a sign of a teacher who will keep clarifying again and again until the doubt is clear. And he says, Aham shreyaha apnuyam tat vadha. I want moksha. Aham shreyaha apnuyam. What is moksha? Moksha is liberation, the discovery of oneself to be fullness, to be whole, to be complete, the meaning of satisfaction. I want to discover this. Tell me how I do it. And he says nishchitya, which means he's giving Bhagavan an ultimatum. Tell me for sure. Don't give me this kind of wishy-washy type of answer. Of course, he's not, he has great respect for Bhagavan. He's not saying it that way because he says, again, he says, mohayasi iva. There's a word there in Sanskrit, iva, which is very important in the whole understanding of this verse, because that shows great respect. He says, you seem to confuse my mind deliberately. So he's actually acknowledging Bhagavan is doing this for a deliberate reason. There is a reason why he is confusing his mind, which he also acknowledges, I may be wrong. I may be wrong, oh Lord, I give you the benefit of the doubt. What is the perfect thing to live? Is it jnanam? Is it knowledge? Or is it karma? What should I follow?